Alright, people, it is time to talk The Bear Season 3, which is now streaming on Hulu and Disney Plus via FX. It came out actually a week ago today. I was pretty upset day it came out. I had a really busy weekend, so I didn't even get to watch the first episode until like Monday, I think, like Sunday or Monday. So we are now here a week later. I've binge watched the show and caught up on The Bear season 3, which it's been interesting, kind of this process of not being able to watch it right away and just kind of, without reading spoilers or anything, but just seeing other people's reactions to this season, kind of tempered and lowered expectations for me, which was sad, but I think was good because if you've been seeing any of the reactions or reviews to this show this season on social media, you'll be seeing a lot of people are not a fan of this season. And I will definitely admit that it is the weakest of the three seasons. Like, I definitely rank it 2, 1, 3. But the other thing that I think people are really having trouble with it is because seasons 1 and 2 were so good, specifically season 2 was just some of the best television we've ever seen. I think that also factors into the disappointment factor that a lot of people are having with this season is that it's not as good as season 2 or as good as season 1, but it's still great. Like, if the first two seasons were like 5 out of 5 stars, season 3 would maybe be a 4, 4.5-ish. Like, it's still great, it's just not as good. And another thing to also take into consideration here is that season 3, you can kind of see this with how it ends with a to be continued, which I don't believe they've done with the other seasons because, like, oh, duh, of course they're going to continue the story in the next season. But I feel like this is very much kind of like a three and four are kind of like a two-part season. So this is very much the first 10 episodes here. Season 3 is part 1, and part 2 of the story will be fleshed out in season 4, which it's not confirmed, but it is rumored that possibly season 4 will be the final season. So it makes sense that they would want to do kind of a two-part style situation here to really have kind of a slower, less is happening, not really completed character arcs in season 3 to then really go out with a bang with a really big season 4, hopefully next year, which originally they were supposed to film back to back, but scripts weren't ready in time. So they'll probably just wait and film season 4 sometime early next year. Now, yeah, like I just mentioned, that is kind of the problem with season 3. Because even when you take that into consideration, you look at a great comparison, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That was a part 1 of part 2. Part 2, Beyond the Spider-Verse, we haven't even seen yet. But Across the Spider-Verse was still a great movie because, yes, it was a part 1. No, it didn't complete all the story, and it still leaves room for more, but it still feels like there were character arcs completed in that film. It still felt like it can stand alone on its own legs. Like, it can be its own movie. It doesn't necessarily need the part 2, but obviously we want it. Here, season 3, it definitely feels, when you end the season, it definitely feels like there's something missing because there's a lot of setups here going on and a lot built up to this finale, and things happen in the finale. Things are being moved along, but it does end with like, okay, what does that mean? And we are, just to be clear, talking spoilers for season 3 here, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out for sure. It's still a great season. Highly recommend it. Fantastic show. Yeah, just with this ending, like, the review was kind of what was being built up this whole season, and then it ends with just flashes of words from the review, and it says, like, at first you think it's positive because it's like, oh, excellent and delicious and all that stuff, and then suddenly you see disappointing and sloppy. And so I feel like it is disappointing we don't really get to find out what this review really even was, but it is nice. I feel like it's probably going in a way of, that's what The Bear is. It's kind of a mixed bag. It is kind of all over the place. Like, there's parts of it that are really great, but there's also parts that definitely, certainly need work. And there's so much going on here in this season with possibly Sydney leaving because obviously she gets that offer from that guy who wants to start his own restaurant. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing with season 4, which again I believe probably will be the final season, is how is this going to end? Is this going to end in a situation where Sydney has to leave and she goes and then is taking control of a competing restaurant against the bear? Or is it going to be Carmi just is left as a broken man even at the end of the series, and when he finally comes to realize that he leaves the bear, and then Sydney can take over, and so we can have that type of situation, which would be interesting. Where because that's kind of the interesting thing with season 3 is everybody kind of, for the most part, like a lot of our characters do have pretty solid arcs. Carmi is really just the biggest one that doesn't really change that much, because he's got his whole thing with Claire going on, and he's got the review that he's worrying about. And I do really like his moment at the end with Joel McHale's character. I thought that was really nice, kind of pay off all the flashbacks and constant PTSD that we saw from the flashbacks in season 1 and season 2. So I thought that was great, but he is definitely left hanging with, like, okay, did he really have a character arc? So that's kind of one way I could see it going here in season 4. As for season 3, I will say there weren't as many standouts as season 2, because again, obviously season 2 was the best. Again, some of the best television we've seen. With that, my favorite episodes were 4, 6, and 7. Here, I honestly think my favorite episode was episode 8, Ice Chips. I really enjoyed, of course, the return of Jamie Lee Curtis. She was great, especially because when we saw her in season 2, she was almost like an antagonist. She was very aggressive, very frightening, a very scary character to have on screen. But here she's more nurturing, more of a mother to Sugar. So I really enjoyed that, and it was just a great episode, kind of like a bottle episode, because the whole episode was just in the hospital with these two characters, and then obviously eventually Petey shows up. So that was a great episode. I really enjoyed that. It was a nice emotional episode. And I'm going to be honest, I really enjoyed the finale as well, because again, while it didn't exactly resolve everything, there were certain things that were paid off and certain things that were, again, not concluded, but set further into motion, again, for season 4. So I really enjoyed that. Also just the song at the end of the season, Laid, love that song. So that was great. Episode 6, Napkins, was great as well. I love those, again, kind of bottle episodes, just focusing on one individual character. That's one of the reasons I love episode 4 of season 2 so much, because that put the focus on Marcus. So I love the focus on Tina here in episode 6. That was great. Seeing how she got involved with the bear. That was fantastic. Obviously, we had some great cameos in this season. A lot of real-life chefs. Great to see them on the show. John Cena shows up. Josh Hartnett, I loved. I really loved his one scene. I will admit, John Cena's cameo, like, it felt a little out of place. But to be fair, he was one of the facts, which is another thing. There's a bit too much of the facts in this season. I mean, I love them. They're funny. And that could honestly just be because of the fact that this show in award season is billed as a comedy series, and a lot of people agree it should probably lean more towards drama, because that's what it feels like. So I feel like they intentionally maybe put more comedy in the season, specifically with the facts, to kind of deal with that. But other than that, again, I still really enjoyed this season. It definitely doesn't feel on par with season 2 or season 1, but it's still good. It's still great television. And again, it is very much kind of like a part 1 of part 2 to be continued in season 4, which I believe will be the final season, which is, it'll suck because I love this show and I want to see more of it, of course. But if these showrunners and creators have a specific vision for how they want to end this show, then end it on their terms. So I think that's great. But again, hopefully we'll be getting season 4 around this time next year. But season 3 what was good. I think a lot of people are being a little too harsh on it, because I still really enjoyed it. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about The Bear Season 3? Was it disappointing to you? Would you say not as good as the other seasons? And if you have any thoughts or theories for Season 4, let me know in the comments below. So thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.